This is a demo of deploying an application using Radius to Kubernetes, AWS, and Azure. We're going to start with our application definition, our app.bicep file. It's a file with our resources specified using the bicep language. It has three resources here as our application, Postgres database. You'll see here that we've, as the platform engineer, have exposed a property called size. That's the only property that's available. And it's just a t-shirt size, small, medium, large for the developer to choose. Platform engineer could expose other properties, maybe a database version number, but there's no details that the developer needs to worry about RDS or Azure database for Postgres, anything like that. All that's taken care of by the Radius recipes behind the scenes. There's also a front-end container. If you're familiar with PodSpec, this looks familiar. Container, an image, a container port. It also has this connection block. The connection block allows the developer to tell Radius that the container has a dependency on the database. With that, Radius can use that information to build a graph of all of the resources for this application. But it also takes that and makes it really easy to share data between these resources. In this case, environment variables will be automatically created inside the container that allow the container to connect. It's a connection string. It allows the container to connect to the database. Now let's flip over to the Radius dashboard, and I want to show the environments. I've set up this configuration to model a large bank with multiple different business units. Here you see we have a retail environment set up on Kubernetes. The risk is set up on AWS. There's an AWS account ID and region. The commercial business unit is running on Azure with the subscription and resource group. Let's go over to the terminal, and I'm going to show you those resource groups in the CLI, just rad group list, our commercial, retail, and risk groups. You can think about a resource group as a Kubernetes namespace, as an Azure resource group. It's just a container of resources. Let's take a look at our environment, or let's switch to the retail group, and then we'll take a look at our environments here. You can see we have dev, test, and prod. We'll go ahead and switch over to the retail test environment. Now we're ready to deploy the application. So just rad deploy app bicep. What it's going to do behind the scenes is execute a recipe for each of the resources. Radius has a deployment engine built into it, so it knows the sequence. So notice that it deployed the Postgres database first, so it could get the connection string and then the container. Let's see the rad app graph command to see what actual resources got created. You can see we have a front end. Again, it has a connection to the database. But here you see that all of these resources, these are Kubernetes deployment, secret, service, etc. And then on the database, you can see that we have just a deployment and a service for the database on Kubernetes. Let's flip over to the application itself. We'll hit reload, and here are the environment variables that were automatically created by Radius based purely on that connection block in the application definition. So you see we're running on Kubernetes. We'll just say that this is deployed on Kubernetes, just a basic to-do list. Let's flip back over to the terminal, and we'll deploy to AWS now. So we'll go ahead and switch to the risk group. And let's switch to we'll get the environments and switch to the risk test. And we'll deploy the application again. The exact same thing happens behind the scenes. And we'll look at the app graph now. And notice very different output because we deployed this to AWS, and you can see our Postgres database is using RDS. There's a whole bunch of things in here like security groups and VPCs and subnets, et cetera. The very last there, you see the Postgres RDS database. Now, if we flip back over to the browser, we'll go to the AWS tab, hit reload, and you see our environment variables have the RDS host name in there. We'll just try it out, like this is deployed on AWS using RDS. Fine. Okay, so the final thing now is let's flip back to the terminal, and we'll switch to the commercial group. This is where our Azure environment is. So we'll do the commercial test and rad deploy. It's going to take just a minute. And now just rad app graph again. Very different. Again, you can see our Postgres database is using Microsoft Database for Postgres Flexible Server. And if we flip back over to the browser, we can take a look at that environment variable there. All right, and final thing, this is deployed on Azure. So that's the demo. What we did was we took a single application app bicep file and deployed it to Kubernetes, to AWS and Azure. Each one of those environments has a different set of recipes. The recipe is where the implementation for each of those resource types resides. We have a recipe for deploying a Kubernetes service and deployment, another one for deploying to AWS RDS, and finally one to deploy to Azure database for PostgreSQL Flexible Server. The developer didn't have to see any of the details there. All that's taken care of by Radius behind the scenes.